that it's one student at a time. Because I think about how many students, some of my classes are huge, that get lost in the class. And that I have to make sure that I treat my students equally because every one of them matters. Even if they don't come to the front of the room after class, even if I can't, they don't stick out, that I have to make sure that they know that they all matter because what they do matters. And this is one of the reasons that we have such a huge social media culture. Because we have, unfortunately, a lot of students that are left behind in their own homes, and so the only place that they can find out and feel that they matter is online. But what happens is that you end up having twice the stress. And this includes you and your Facebook. Because you are carrying two personas and two lives. And then at some point, one becomes just too much work for the other. But back to strengths and control is asking yourself, where do you feel most capable? And looking for our students in terms of where they feel most capable. And that positive emotions, this is called the second one, is the broaden and build theory of positive emotions and psychology, is that it's not just about feeling good. It's that if you feel joy, happiness, contentment, it actually broadens you in terms of how you act and think. So if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, emotions were underneath esteem. We can't think straight, any one of us in this room, until our emotions are taken care of. So if we're feeling a sense of persecution or fear or negativity, then we're not able to focus for extended periods of time. And so that's another reason why I know from my personal mission as a professor that the classroom is a positive, uplifting place that we spend probably, if we have a 3-hour class, the first 10 minutes just getting everybody relaxed, ready to learn, and we can learn twice as much in half the time because they're focused. No phones, no anything in there. I will walk them to the Tim Hortons down the hall, but I have to tell you, when someone feels connected to their teacher, when you're with them and you make it meaningful, they don't want to be on their phones. Phones are a poor substitute for the real thing. This is why strengths are important and acknowledging them. Because if we're only teaching certain skills that are not your strengths, then you don't realize what a genius you are. So when I teach about multiple intelligence, I remind you and my students, because I do teach intelligence and test it for a living, is that every single person in this room, is a genius at something. Maybe everything, but at least one thing. So myself personally, my strengths are interpersonal and intrapersonal, and definitely linguistic. At a young age, my father said, Andrea, whatever you do, make sure you get paid to talk. And your parents may have said the same thing to you. So I'll also tell my students that there's not one lazy person in this room, in my classroom. They just haven't found what makes their heart sing. And once we find out what makes our heart sing, there's no stopping us. And I have to tell you, I learned the most from my tech teachers at the Teachers College when I worked with Vicki Houston, because they would tell me all these stories about how they were left behind for so many years from the academic side until they really found the technology that brought out the best in them. And so that's important to remember too. And we need to ask that question of our students. Another reason that control and focusing on what works is so important is that our brains are wired that the more that we repeat a story, whether it be positive or negative, the more it becomes entrenched in our neural network. So for example, if I'm doing therapy, 20% of the time I'll focus on the client's story from the past, and the 80% of the time I'll focus on the solution. So I will acknowledge, I'll respect, but I won't entrench it over and over and over. So for some of us, when we complain and we blame, it feels good at the time, but what ends up happening is because neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning that the neural networks get stronger. When something bad happens, that negative thought will come more quickly than a positive solution. And part of control is knowing when to let go. So this is a room filled with helpers, problem solvers. I got that. I'm in charge. You know, it feels good until it hurts. It's like helping till it hurts. So I know we have many guidance counselors in this room that Friday afternoon is the worst time of the day because they're lined up and they need problems solved right there and then. But we have to remember that compassion is something that we have to build up from self-compassion. That you have to take the time for yourself. It's a directive, and you come back giving double. And this goes back to locus of control. There are only so many things outside of you that you can control. And having the courage to recognize that, like, I'll take your list. It might hurt a little bit as you tell me your challenge that you don't want to give up. There's so many challenges you don't want to give up because it makes you feel in control when you hold on to that challenge. Some of the hardest things to do is say, I can't do it. But you know what? We expect our students to tell us and reach out for help, but we aren't willing to do it for ourselves. So everything that we're asking of our students and our staff, I know we have a lot of administrators in this room, you got to do it for yourself first. And trust me, I know compassion fatigue firsthand. What brings you to a profession like psychology and social work, guidance counseling, teaching, is because, once again, you were that grade 4 that would help out everybody in the classroom. Now, I remember before they had the before and after shows, I would go into my friend's bedroom and do it over. I mean, you name it, I did it. And it's exciting, but at the end of the day, you got to take the oxygen for yourself first. There's no question. So on that sheet of paper, if you want to add a couple things that you know you need to let go of, even one thing, and you might go at it many, many times. So what are some things that you would like to let go? What would you like to let go, Mr. Principal?
Ironically enough, it's the laundry.
The laundry. How old are your kids?
12, 10, and 7.
And why aren't they doing their own laundry?
They do sometimes.
Okay. So whose laundry are you talking about, your wife's?
Primarily, yes.
So should we schedule an intervention?
I'm not going to say anything else because she has friends here in the room, so.
I think she used to do the laundry, but this gentleman's so meticulous that she got upset about every time she didn't do it right. Was that part of it?
I've never met you before, have I?
I read people for a living. Thank you for volunteering, though. He's like, oh, I heard that. Defense mechanism. What would you like to let go of? Anybody at this table? Oh, it's got silent. Anybody want to volunteer what they want to let go of? So, okay, we got to. Pardon?
I just put of the things at school that we, like getting rid of what we can't control after the school hours. Letting go of after, between the hours of 9 and 3, we help the kids, and after that, we can't control what happens. We can't help control what happens on a lot of levels.
No, we can't. So many of the things that you think that we think we can control, and then you feel guilt. How many of you have guilt on the table because of that, right? How much of the letting go is thoughts? Thoughts. Guilt. Yes.